Should everyone go start a business? Should some people rather stay working 9 to 5 where they're comfortable? What's your honest take about, everyone now being advised to go become their own boss?
I think a lot of entrepreneurs go in with great ideas and they are tenacious and they're focused. However, their vision just isn't big enough. And you combine a small vision with bad timing, you find yourself out of business. How does your business run and how does it operate? And you really get dialing that in and making it very duplicatable. Where are you getting your customers and leads from? Making that predictable. And then really being efficient and mastering the sales process. Those three things. You get those things down in business, you're unstoppable.
Take a look around you. The high failure rate of tech startups is alarming. While 42% of startups fail in the real estate industry, roughly 53% fail in the retail industry. And guess which industry tops them all? Information technology. 63% of tech startups tend to fail within the first 5 years. Alarming, right? Well, you shouldn't be that concerned because in this episode, we so happen to have someone who has made it his mission to empower and also to enrich entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, business owners, and others looking to venture into that path. His name is Arias WebsterBerry. He's a founder of a couple of companies, including Launch Ignition AI, which, as you probably guessed, is an AI platform that helps to empower entrepreneurs and businesses to automate and make significant revenue in a short period of time as well. As you will get to see, he has this kind of interesting mission and a goal to achieve by 2026. Let's hear more from the guest. Hello, Arias. How are you today?
I'm doing amazing. How about you?
I'm fine. Nice to have you. Where are you logging in from?
I am in Dallas, Texas.
Oh, okay. How's the weather over there?
Cold, actually. It is, I want to say in the 40s, low 40s right now.
Oh, you don't say. Yeah. Guess how the weather is here. Rainy and gloomy. Typical London weather. Arias, for the viewers, do you mind, briefly just telling us, who Arias is and what it is that gets you out of bed every single morning?
Yeah, my name is Arias WebsterBerry. I am an entrepreneur, a author, a speaker, a trainer. My main training is in digital marketing. So I run a digital marketing firm called WebsterBerry Marketing. We're a full service marketing agency. We help small to medium-sized businesses generate leads, convert those leads into dollars. We manage social media, we run ads, we do a whole bunch of stuff. We've got a pretty big team, about 15 to 20 people at this point. And as far as what gets me out of bed, I guess just the ability to create things, to help businesses solve problems, to generate revenue for those businesses. My overall mission for the next couple of years is what I'm calling a 100x impact, where our goal is to help 1,000 Black entrepreneurs generate 6 figures in 1 year. And then we're also trying to help 100 business owners generate 7 figures in a year. So that's the kind of reason I drink coffee in the morning.
Nice one. You're quite precise with those numbers on the goal setting. It's a bold, brave move, but hats off to you. Did that originate from somewhere? Was that triggered by something in particular? People typically don't set, such stringent timelines. on their goals, right? Yours, you've set this goal to achieve it in roughly a year, right? In 2026, to get 100 entrepreneurs to make at least $1 million by 2026. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think I work best when I am under pressure, and I like to synthesize pressure. And we have something that started as just a coaching program that quickly evolved into a AI software mixed and blended with a coaching program. It's called launchignition.ai. And it started as just kind of a small thing for business owners that didn't really qualify to work with us on the agency side because we have some requirements. So I just started with some friends of friends and family, and basically giving them information or the things that I used in my businesses to scale them to 6 and 7 figures and beyond. Really just giving them the components that they need in order to be structured and organized and really get to market and serve their clients. And it just started with a handful of people, 5-6 people that first year. I think we did around 50,000. It's kind of a side business, like 50,000, 56,000 in revenue, just working with the few people that were referred from that original group. And it's grown since then. And because I like that pressure in those numbers, I said, well, let's come up with a goal. And I am a firm believer that fortune favors the bold and unrelenting. So I said, what's a goal that's attainable but a little bit out of reach? And that's what we came up with. Interesting.
I looked a bit into your achievements, and I see you've so far raised at least $112 million for entrepreneurs. Now, this is me speaking to the viewers. If you want to make such wealth, you've got the person to reach out to right on this call. And you probably want to watch all of this just to get some tips and tricks, how to sidestep, common pitfalls that might prevent you from achieving or attaining such wealth. Try not to make it about wealth. Honestly, it's about achieving things, right? Money and fame would probably be a side product. But we have someone on today's call, apparently, who's been out there in the trenches. He's earned his stripes, and, we're probably going to be learning quite a lot on that front. Arias, before we go any further, do you mind just briefly a little background on your past, your history, all the way, just from the early beginnings, how you started out, maybe education-wise, if you're open to sharing that, and also how you eventually came to this current position doing what you're doing?
I have a unconventional path, or as Robert Frost would say, a road less traveled. Before I was a marketer and a business owner, I was just a kid. I think I had a normal upbringing for the most part. I lived in the suburbs, thanks to my mom working multiple jobs. But it seems, at critical points in my life where I was making a transition to a new stage, it seemed that the world was designed to test me. My parents, at one point, both of them were incarcerated. My father struggled with drug addiction, with opioids. That he, started very early in his adulthood, and he struggled with for the better part of 15 years. So because of that, he was in and out of jail. He wasn't really around much. And, that left a void, a boy trying to grow into a man without a example of that manhood that I'm trying to attain. And when I was 13, my freshman year of high school, we lost my father to police violence. He got into an altercation with some police officers, actually on the side of the freeway, and we lost him. So in a critical time where I'm transitioning from middle school to high school, right, from child to teenager, I lose that one example that's supposed to be there to usher you into this new phase. And then, before I was 18, we had lived in over 12 places. So a lot of movement, a lot of transition, a lot of instability. And, through all of that, I've seen a lot of people make bad decisions or succumb to the environment around them, or use those things as a reason why they decided to take a different path. And I did the opposite. I used it as a reason to make something of myself and do something meaningful and, contribute to the lives of others. Yeah.
And so far, it seems to be turning out just fine for you. So, yeah, again, hats off to you.
Yeah.
No, that staying with the lemons and what you do with them. So I think you've made very good lemonade with yours. And
I've tried.
Every stripe, every scar has its lesson, and you probably have. That's also why you're probably on this call as well. People always tend to build a well of experience and knowledge, which enable them to do some consultancy and share information on podcasts like this. So way to go. And thanks for that brief introduction. It helps to get a better feel of where you're coming from and probably where you're going. You're unstoppable, a hustler mentality.
Indeed.
There's a lot I could speak about that, about what you said, but it's going to take us on some of that direction. I just finished reading this book. It's the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Oh yeah.
I know many will be surprised I haven't read it all this time, but it was so revealing.
Yeah, I remember reading that and I could not put it down. Talk about struggle. Talk about just being in a placed in a life that was not designed for you to succeed. And then at one point, I guess kind of what I was talking about, using that as a reason and kind of following a path that's been laid out for you. And, all of the negative things that he did as a result early in his life, but just the remarkable comeback and, just reinvention, metamorphosis of the man that he became is it was gripping for me. And I guess when I read it, I don't think I actually related it to my story, oddly enough. It was just a great story, right? It's something out of a movie, but to know that's a real person and he's one of the most influential people of our time is crazy.
Yeah. Now, reading this myself as an adult, it's different. Before reading that, I already had a good idea of how life was in the 70s. But now I was able to read that book and also watch him speak on YouTube. So it was just, this cold shower of information or just in complete awe of the brilliance of the man. And the reason I actually bring that up is for any listener who's, struggling with not having that father figure to look up to guide them. There are a lot of things they could learn from that book, and carving your own path and standing up for yourself. And then, as you said, you can come back. There's always possibility of redemption and making a name for yourself in spite of what everyone says. So that was a big takeaway for me. Arias, if we could jump into the crux of the matter. Mm-hmm. You had the alarming stats I shared at the beginning of this episode. Mm-hmm. Why do you think many tech-driven businesses tend to fail?
I think the first thing is just they've niched down too much. I look at a lot of companies that have been bought up by behemoths like Meta or Google. And usually they have some really good technology. They have a really good idea, but it doesn't solve a wide enough problem. It does solve it creates something innovative, or it creates something that's really cool that people latch onto. However, in the grand scheme of things, they end up getting dovetailed into a larger product, and they just become a feature. Um, you think of something like, say, TikTok, right? Short form video. That's now a feature that is on basically every social media platform, right? It's no longer unique. When you think of something like Twitter, now there's Threads, this text-based movement. And some platforms or some companies, especially in tech, they do create something unique. They adapt new ideas and new features and technology quick enough to be able to expand what they offer. But a lot of companies do not. They very much focus on the narrow thing that they're really good at, and they either get bought out and swallowed up by a larger company, or that company says, screw it, we'll just make it ourselves and add it to our arsenal. I think that's the biggest thing. And the second is timing. A lot of times you may have a good idea and you may be before your time, or you may be too late to the party. So timing has a big deal to do with your success. There's a book called Freakonomics, and they detail some of the biggest people that we know and how they became who they are. And it's just simply because, they were in the right place at the right time. There's another book called The Outliers, and it goes into great detail about how, some of the biggest founders and innovators in technology was simply because they were born within a certain period of time. You look at Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, McAfee, all of these guys, they happen to be old enough to get access to computers. And they also happen to be young enough to walk into the space with open eyes and, seeing full possibilities. And if you were born maybe 5 years or 6 years before or later, you fell outside of that window. So timing has a lot to do with technology and, whether your idea is properly placed, and if you have the worldview or the perspective that lends to you creating something that will stand the test of time.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm just thinking as maybe a business owner watching this, right? I'm trying to see what they can take away from your response regarding common pitfalls they should look out for, when trying to ensure their tech startup doesn't become one of those horrible statistics that actually become successful, right? So I gathered you've mentioned timing. Means they should be cognizant of the fact that probably their idea is a good one. However, it's coming to the market at an inopportune moment, and they might want to maybe wait on it, or they should have maybe acted sooner. So they should consider trying out something else. So I'm trying to summarize that as a lesson that can really be applied to a modern day entrepreneur. So that's regarding the timing. On the first item you raised, regarding small ideas or small products being consumed or being copied into other companies. If you don't mind expatiating on that a little bit as in the exact lesson that can be taken away from that as well, that would help.
Yeah, the lesson is small ideas make small impacts. And you need to really assess if your idea is big enough. My mentor always told me, think big, work small. A great example is Jeff Bezos. He literally got a chorus of laughter once he signed his first big deal. And that first big deal was with Barnes & Noble. And now we know that Amazon dwarfs Barnes & Noble. No one really pays attention to them anymore. But he always had a huge idea, right? His idea was that he was going to sell basically everything that wasn't nailed down to the ground. And he had that idea back in the mid and late 90s, right? But he worked small in, hey, I'm going to sell books. And he had an idea of, I'm going to focus on the data, accumulating enormous amounts of data, and then incrementally improving my offering and making it easier and faster for people to be able to purchase books online. I'm going to get it to them quickly. And then he took that same technology and he slowly expanded the amount of things that he sells, right? And this was before cell phones. This was before applications on cell phones. This was before Bluetooth and all these amazing, technologies that eventually came. But his vision and his idea was big enough so that as innovation and technology became more prevalent, he could fulfill that initial big idea. I think a lot of entrepreneurs go in with great ideas and they are tenacious and they're focused. However, their vision just isn't big enough. And you combine a small vision with bad timing and, you find yourself out of business.
That makes sense. It's unfortunate that you might spend a lot of time working on your idea, which you have all hoped would turn out to be, the idea, right? The main idea that after a couple of years, just like Amazon, would blossom into something worth your time. But then on the one side, you have to invest time and resources to find out if it's actually something. That's a legit reason why a lot of people fail in life in general, not even in starting a company. They have to spend a lot of time and resources exploring an idea in order to see if it becomes something. That's one takeaway I'm getting from your response, which is valid and very, very real.
Yeah, I think that one of the big things, like when you asked about the goal and the stat, right? Do I know how I'm going to help 100 people? Yeah, I've got a good idea. Do I know exactly how and how much money and time it's going to take? No, but it starts with casting the vision, challenging myself to do something that is currently maybe outside of my capacity, and forcing myself to grow into that capacity, to embody that ability, to gather the resources and challenge my team to fulfill the mission. Right? Because when you think about any journey, any trek, you're stepping out on faith, your ability to, and even literally just trying to get down the street, right? To get into your car and arrive at a destination. You don't have the ability to own that space and teleport. You're moving in faith that you have the ability to successfully get there safely. And that's what your vision is. You have to push yourself. And I think that coincides greatly with your ability to think, dream, and visualize yourself achieving things that are currently beyond you.
Yeah, and taking a lot of risks. I completely agree.
Yeah.
Completely agree. Fortune, as you said, it favors the bold, the brave. Many of the business owners, especially the small business owners I've been able to speak to of late, they tend to struggle with scaling, right? And funny enough, not all of them are well off or making significant revenue every single year. But scaling is something that they've time boxed into a particular period, 2 to 3 years, and it's about time, and they're just worried that they've been struggling to scale, and they've got their challenges. I was just wondering if you had some insight or some guidance on how to go about scaling, especially for tech companies of roughly 2 to 3, less than 5 years, I would say.
Yeah, that's actually what LaunchIgnition.ai was built for. It's businesses and entrepreneurs that are in those first 5 years that, maybe haven't hit their first 6 figures or 7 figures. So I have a lot to say on this subject. When it comes to scaling, you really have to break it down to exactly what is it, right? What is scaling a business? It's a buzzword that those that are in tech specifically hear all the time. Those that are in digital marketing is every single day. But a lot of earlier entrepreneurs don't really know that term. So scaling is your ability to flex, right? Your ability to grow incrementally and predictably. And when you talk about scaling, you really have to figure out all of the inputs and outputs, all of the levers and pulleys of your business. A lot of people just focus on the end result. How much money did we make? How many customers? Those things. But typically we find that the customers that we turn away on the agency side, we send them over to Launch Ignition, because if you haven't hit that first 6 or 7 figures, that means that you have a scalability issue. And the scalability issue isn't just in your revenue, it's in your internal processes. You haven't really mastered what it takes to produce an increment, right? So 1, in generating demand and finding someone who wants your product or service, and 2, being able to get it to them efficiently in time and in what it takes to produce it. So we spent a lot of time early on with entrepreneurs trying to help them figure those things out. 1, what's your process, right? How do you take a customer from point A, I have a problem, to point B, here's the solution, right? What are all the steps in that, and how can you make that duplicatable to where you can teach it to anybody that's a frontline worker coming, into your business day one? If you don't have those things mapped out, literally in a diagram, in a document, to where you can easily train it, well, then before you do anything else, before you decide to go get any more customers, you need to figure that out, right? You really need to understand how your business functions. And if you can't put it into a manual and take people through step by step, 1, 2, 3, ABC, then you don't have a duplicatable process. You're nowhere near being able to scale. Once you have that figured out, number 2, the problem is having a predictable lead source. Most entrepreneurs, they kind of jump to this, but they've missed the step that I just mentioned. But you need to have a space where there is a large pool or cache of potential customers, people that have the problem that you solve for, that your product or solution solves for. And typically, most businesses don't even have 1, but you need to focus on 1, and then you need to rapidly get to 2, 3, and 4. Right? Whether that's we run social media ads and we've figured out the targeting in specific place where our target demo congregates, or if you do maybe a booth at a conference or a seminar or something like that, where you're physically coming into contact with your target demographic. Or maybe you do networking events, or you have referral partners, right? Adjacent businesses that have a big pool of the people you're trying to get to, and you've established a relationship to where they send those leads your way, right? So that's a big thing in scalability, knowing where your potential customers are and being able to pull them to you, get their contact information so you have the opportunity to pitch them. The third thing is, once you've figured out your process, you figured out where your leads and your target demographic congregate, well, now you need a predictable mechanism to convert them into sales. Right? And a lot of entrepreneurs, especially founders, shy away from that word sales. They see it as a dirty word. They get the ick when they talk about sales or pitching.
But why is that though?
There's a negative connotation around sales. And I get it. There's always that term, the used car salesman, right? The sleazeball, kind of greasy, say anything, do anything to get a sale. And I personally don't think that's what you should think about when you see a salesperson, right? Or you think about making a sale or engaging in a sales conversation. A great salesman is not somebody who sells products and services to people who don't need them. A great salesperson is someone who talks to someone identifies a real need or problem, and then makes a recommendation on how to solve that problem. If you come across somebody who doesn't need what you have, or maybe doesn't need everything that you have, we need to tailor your recommendation to their needs. And when you do that, making sales becomes very easy. It becomes an enjoyable process, both for you and the prospect, because they honestly have an issue that they need solved. And you're now presenting that, hey, I have the solution. This is how we're going to get it done. Is it in your price range? And, hopefully you'll thank me once this is done. Those are the issues, right? They don't have their business together in a way that is well structured, organized, to where they have a full grip on what it is they do and how they produce solutions. They don't know where they're getting their leads from, and they don't have the mechanism and the skills necessary to be able to convert those leads into customer. That process right there is scalability. That is what we solve for in launchignition.ai. And it's hard for me to have these conversations with people because when they come to us, they think their problem is just, we need more customers. We just need to make a little bit more revenue. That's our only issue. And I say, well, how much did you make last year? They get to tap dancing because they don't want to really talk about money. But once we eventually pull that number out, with the number, I typically know immediately where you are in your business. And it's usually not the conversation about, social media ads or, posting on TikTok or, how much you're spending, in your marketing. It's usually something that you fully have control of, which is how your business is organized.
Yeah, but I would think it's normal to say not all companies should consider scaling. What do you think about this? I think you need to have found something that works well, right? Before you consider scaling.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the first thing we do in Launch Ignition is we dig into what it is that you do, right? Who you're talking to, what are you saying to them, and then what's your offer? And if you don't have a fully formed offer, which is something that provides a holistic solution, then that's your first problem. And that kind of goes back to our conversation earlier. You've niched down so much that you can easily be supplanted by someone else that provides that holistic solution. So, a great example is something that everybody understands, a burger, right? If you go to a burger, most people also want fries and a drink. That's a meal. But let's say you only sell ground beef. Well, that's not a meal, right? Those are ingredients, but that's not the final product, right? And a lot of entrepreneurs are stuck providing ingredients and not solutions, not final products, not packages. If you only have an ingredient, well, you need to either improve the amount of things that come with it, or you need to adjust who you're selling to, because there's a market for people to buy ground beef, but it's not the end consumer typically, right? If you want to make a lot of money in it, well, typically you need to figure out how you can get to someone who can sell it in mass, which means if you're trying to go to individual consumers, well, you're most likely going to lose. But if you start targeting grocery stores or restaurants, well, they can buy, things in mass. So not everybody's set up for scale. The only other people I would say that aren't set up for scale or that shouldn't scale are businesses of hobby. Not everybody that starts a business is looking to becoming a big business. Some people are okay doing things seasonally, doing things because they just enjoy doing it. It makes some money, but nothing significant enough to maybe guide their life. And even if it does, they're not interested in growing it to the point where it can move beyond them. And that's perfectly okay. The issue becomes when you haven't decided to be honest with yourself about where you are in that. You tell your friends and family, or you portray yourself to be this entrepreneur that's trying to build it into a big business, but your daily activity is that of a hobbyist. That means your dream and your hustle don't match. And you definitely need to get those things in alignment before you decide to get up every day and get into this business.
I was just thinking, where does innovation fit into all of this? So again, we're still looking at this from the lens of a small business trying to avoid complete destruction within the next few months, years, right? A small business trying to persevere, trying to succeed, trying to sidestep the common mistakes made by people, by other businesses that have failed, right? There's just so much that gets thrown at that business. You've got to worry about scalability, and excellent definition of scalability, the way you just nicely portrayed it. I might just take a second to echo that quickly. The way you explain scalability as businesses should not focus on just the product, increasing the quantity of product or the number of customers that are coming in, but they should also consider expanding the operation side of their business. The engine that provides the services, the goods and services, that has to be optimized, that has to be expanded as well, which is something not many people think about. And I just had to segue there to echo that. And now back to these businesses trying to survive, trying to persevere. A lot gets thrown at them. Is it scalability? Is it time for me to scale? Should I be, innovating so I could keep up with the tides, and don't get left behind? Because just look around you, what's happening, especially with AI now in the picture. It's innovate or get left behind. And there's just so much learning for any business to do today just to stay ahead of the curve. So I would think innovation plays a significant part, staying afloat, but I'm keen to get your opinion on this.
Yeah, I mean, innovation is critical to the long-term survival of any business. If innovation and growth of your offerings is not a regular goal, well, then you're not going to be in business long. You look at Blockbuster and their slow move to get into the streaming side of things. So much so that they, or even before that, DVDs, it took them a while to disassociate themselves from VHS tapes because it was so prevalent and they were owning that market, and they had, brick and mortar stores all over the country. And then this little company comes in with these little DVDs and they're just mailing them to customers directly, right? No brick and mortar stores, no huge real estate holdings. They're just, hey, sign up for our subscription. I'll send you a DVD in the mail. You send it back when you get a chance. And then eventually, because they had this disruptive and innovative approach to getting to customers directly, they were early adopters of streaming. And that company we now know as Netflix. And Blockbuster is no more. I think they might have just let go of their last location last year, I think. They went from thousands of locations all over the United States to none, inside of 10 years. So innovative thought in incremental growth has to be part of at least a monthly thing where you actually set some time aside to say, hey, how can we do this better? But I think there's a couple different ways you can do it. It's not just about creating new products or adopting the latest technology. It's just about finding better ways to solve your customers' problems and, delivering consistent value. And if you focus on those things, how do I solve their problem? Are you listening to your customers, right? Are you actually sending out the surveys that you think nobody fills out? And when if you send out 1,000 and maybe 10 people fill it out, are you actually reading what they say? And are you bringing that to your team so that you guys can consider it and possibly come up with some solutions to utilize this data that you've now collected and start, creating solutions around that? And whether it works or not, it doesn't matter. It's just that mechanism of you collecting information and trying to implement it into your product or service. That is what keeps you ahead of the competition. I'm constantly listening to my customers. I'm constantly paying attention to what's going on in the market. Am I a big company? And I'm hearing rumblings about some little company over there that's doing something so far out of the way we do things, but I keep hearing their name pop up. Well, you might want to pay attention. You might want to dig into what they're doing and figure out how you may be able to incorporate some of that into, your products or services. Otherwise, you end up as a Barnes and Noble or a mom and pop grocery store or a Blockbuster or a Kodak, Polaroid. All these companies evaporated because somebody else came around and did it faster, cheaper, and quicker. Innovation is critical. But your innovation, I think that when people think of innovation, they always think of like these huge, massive leaps, but it doesn't need to be that way. There's a difference between disruptive innovation and incremental innovation. In the vast majority of companies, if they're focused on the things we just talked about, which is listening, they can stay alive and innovate by just making very small changes to what they're already doing. If you make a 5% change every quarter, to the benefit of your customer or your processes, then at the end of the year, that's a 20% increase. In 5 years, that's 100% increase. You are staying on the precipice of your industry by aiming for that 5% a quarter. And you don't have to be Steve Jobs and create the iPhone. You don't have to be Tom to come up with social media, right? You can just be Zuckerberg, who came up with social media, right? But it was just, hey, instead of us having all these things, we're just going to do compare these two faces.
We're just going to take people's data.
Right. But his initial idea was just, I'm going to get online. I'm going to take two people's faces. I'm going to put them side by side and you give it an up or a down. That was it. And there's some comments around it. That's where Facebook started. And slowly he's innovated incrementally, slowly but surely, to become the biggest social media network on the planet, right? That incremental change.
Yeah, no, you make a very good point. But, innovation as a concept, it's a very complex one.
Mm-hmm.
And as you alluded to, there are many ways to go about innovating successfully. And especially now with AI in the picture, and just look at, with the rapid proliferation of AI solutions we're experiencing now, I don't think the world has experienced this uptrend in technological advancement, right? We're experiencing this paradigm shift like never before. And I think also that concept itself, innovation, is forever changing the definition of innovation, right? Because while some people put their head down to study and to innovate, like as it was done in the 70s, where you discover something and you build upon that and you write lengthy articles explaining what you've explained your innovation, essentially. Innovation doesn't necessarily have that same definition today. Today you've got a lot of AI solutions, most of them powered by some large language model on the back end, right? That anyone in anywhere, any part of the world can just whip up an end-to-end functional solution or SaaS in one weekend. They have a functional tool ready to sell to the public, right?
Yeah.
They're going to call it, of course, it's an innovation. And most of these tools, unfortunately, they're not well tested, right? Most of them are still in the beta version, poorly tested, questionable ethics in how data is being consumed and used for training.
Yeah.
And some of them outright risky. I could speak at length at a lot of lawsuits that have resulted from the usage of such tools in processing data, illegally processing data from the masses, eventually leading to some form of harm on the people being studied and so on and so forth. And you're probably also aware of all the rioting that has been going on with the writers and the actors about their content being snatched from the public and used against their will.
Yeah.
So innovation has taken a completely different turn, especially since 2022, since ChatGPT became so prevalent across countries. Now, my question to you is this. Again, since our focal point is still on companies trying to keep afloat, right? Would you say it's safe for such companies, such startups that are less than 5 years old, to use such, I would call them chewing gum solutions, AI solutions, to run their businesses, play along with the fake it till you make it method, until they eventually hit something big before they begin to invest and actually do real innovation, like maybe Elon Musk's companies with the electric car and the rockets and all that? Would you say it's safe for these tech startups to do that type of innovation, where I don't know if you can call it, but that's what they say. They call it innovation and they slap the word AI powered, right? In their companies. What's your honest opinion about such companies going that route, using such solutions which are cheap and everywhere on the market you could get one, to run their business, at least test the waters and see if something is working before they eventually expand and probably turn that into something more concrete and reliable?
Yeah, I mean, many startups rush to adopt AI without fully understanding its implications because, like you said, it's a buzzword. The term attracts investors, it attracts customers. It's sexy right now. However, using AI as a gimmick without real functionality can be really harmful, right? Like you said, if you haven't done the work to make sure that your tech is secure, right? If you haven't taken the security, the time to really secure your data, to make sure that all the vendors and all the back-end technology that you're using also has security, develop security apparatuses and processes fully built in. You haven't tested those things. You can be one of these people that we see all the time, where all these data breaches with people's social security numbers and their purchasing data and their home addresses and phone numbers. Once that information is opened, it's out there and you can never get it back. So it's important that you take the time to fully develop a solution that is safe and well thought out. But it's also using AI as a gimmick without real functionality can harm your credibility, not only your company, but you as an individual founder or owner or employee working at one of these companies. We see a lot of these exposés in serious criminal lawsuits that come across with these people that are claiming all of these different things. And many times we only hear about the founder. But, if you're one of the people that is assisting in this fraud, well, you can also be held liable. So I think it's important for everyone, all of us, consumers included, to really take a hard look at who we are giving our information to, who we are giving our dollars to, who we're giving our time and our support in name to. when we are working for these companies and supporting them. But you mentioned the fake it till you make it debate. This short-term gain versus long-term damage. The strategy might generate initial interest, right, in pretending that you can do all these things. But when users find out that the product lacks depth or functionality, well, then it erodes trust. And I get it, sometimes in what I said earlier, in, having a very big dream and wanting to do things that may be outside of your capacity and just saying, I'm gonna figure it out. You can do those things internally, right? But when you start making promises to customers, when you start making promises to your employees, to your investors, to the public, that you're going to solve a problem or you're going to produce a thing, you better well make sure that you have the ability to do those things, or you need to adjust their expectations, right? Someone who's famous for this, that no one really calls him to carpet for, is Elon Musk. People forget that when he started Tesla, he told everyone that he was going to produce this vehicle for a certain amount of money. I want to say, don't quote me, but somewhere around like $60,000, something like that. And he was going to get it done in a couple years. And it ended up taking like 4 or 5 years. And he had to go back to all the people who made that initial
to ask them
for more money. Like, hey, you already
for more money,
$50,000. I'm going to need another 80 in order to actually produce this thing. And yeah, I know it took 3 more years than I said it was. But hey, that's where we are. And, that's not really ethical. However, he got it done, and he was trying to do something that no one had really done. I don't think he did it. I think it was an honest mistake. I don't think that he really understood that his numbers were way off. But in those times, and we all do it, I've done it, right? Estimated what it was going to take, overpromised, under-delivered. But it's important that you come clean and you ask for forgiveness, and you hopefully, eventually actually produce that product. So it's better to under-promise and over-deliver than to over-promise and under-deliver. And I think that a lot of founders, especially charismatic ones, get caught up in building a buzz and trying to get people excited and behind their idea and dream. And they get into this kind of death spiral of, saying a whole lot of things that sound great as sound bites, but not really being able to produce and deliver.
Indeed. We're also experiencing this period where entrepreneurship seems to be trending. I could mention some names, but I would rather not, because I have some of them as connections on my LinkedIn. But they go about telling everybody to become entrepreneur, to quit their 9-to-5 and go start a business. So there are quite a lot of these gurus, I would say, right now, who go about teaching this and advocating for, starting a business, quitting the 9-to-5 at all costs. And everyone is encouraged to do that. Now, in your line of business, you would probably be a strong proponent of many people going the entrepreneurship route. But I don't know, that's why I'm bringing that forward. I would like to get your take on what you think about, everyone going down that route, trying to start a business. Should everyone go start a business? Should some people rather stay working 9-to-5 where they're comfortable? What's your honest take about, everyone now being advised to go become their own boss?
I think the vast majority of people are not cut out to be entrepreneurs. I truly believe that this takes a unique person, because, the thing that they don't tell you about entrepreneurship is that it is not a straight line. I always laugh when I talk to new entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, and they hear my story, or maybe they've Google me or whatever. And they're like, yeah, man, I want to be an entrepreneur like you. Man, I see that you go out on all these amazing trips and, it seems like you're always in a different country and you meet all these cool people. Man, you're living the dream. And I say, yeah, that's only been the last few years. I've been an entrepreneur since I can remember. This is multiple decades of me working to get to this point. And that's the part that no one tells you. That's the part of the movie that they always fast forward. In the movie, the guy he's got an idea, he's got a dream, he's got grit, and he says, I'm going to do this thing. And he starts doing it. He meets a little resistance. And then they fast forward to the big building and the ribbon cutting ceremony, and he buys the new car and he's got the house and he gets the girl and, he's getting awards. There's some little issue. He solves it and then everybody's happy and they ride off into the sunset. But that little issue, that part, and the part at the beginning when he starts, they always fast forward. They miss that from the inception of the idea to, you really getting it moving. Well, that may have been a 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 year period. They miss the part when most of the people who then become big hit that roadblock and most of them don't recover from it. They lose their businesses. They go bankrupt. They get sued by a partner, right? There is an enormous amount of struggle. And if you think that entrepreneurship means that you get to wake up when you want, you get to, travel to exotic locations and you just work from your laptop on a beach and you get to set your own schedule and it's a stress-free life and, it's just great, then you are sadly mistaken. I have never worked harder for anything in my life. I have never worked more hours. I have never been more stressed. I have never experienced as much emotional and mental hardship as when I have ran businesses. And I don't say that to discourage people from this thing. I just am a proponent of being real and honest, giving it to you, straight, no chaser. This is not what you think of when all of these, digital nomads. I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to move to Bali and, I'm going to sip lattes and, hang with other, millennials that have all these great ideas and it's going to be amazing. That's not really what this is. So no, I don't think that most people should be entrepreneurs. I don't think that most people should start real businesses. And I think that most people have the ability to start a business? Yeah, it's not that hard, but do they have the ability to do it full time? No, most do not. Or if they do have the ability, they don't have the will, right? The will
makes perfect sense.
Yeah, the will is are you going to wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and then go to sleep at 12 or 1? And can you do that for 2 years or 3 or 5 in order to actually get your business off the ground? Can you sacrifice the brunches with your girlfriends? Can you miss some soccer games and football games with kids because you have to go get in front of this potential customer that could change your business? There's those sacrifices, and most people are not cut out to sacrifice that much for this thing.
I completely agree. I've spoken to some entrepreneurs and they struggle with problems as big as not being able to sleep because they have nowhere to pay the salaries of their employees for that month.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine that kind of problem?
Yeah.
It's not problem of not having food to eat for yourself. It's not having money to pay Bob, who works in accounting, who has 7 kids. His wife has just given birth, and you smile and you play with Bob every single day, but you need to pay him next 2 days and you've got no money coming in.
Yep.
So I completely agree with you and I echo that final question just for the viewers. If there is one big mistake you've made in your career journey so far, something you would want to advise the viewers to say, hey, watch out for this mistake. Whatever you do, do not go down that particular route. What would that mistake be?
I would probably say what you just talked about. I think when I was a earlier entrepreneur, there's one point I actually ended up homeless. I bet everything on a business, and it wasn't the right timing. I didn't have the set of skills. I wasn't ready, and I was just so excited, and I thought, man, I can do this. And I did quit my job early, and things were going great at first, and then they weren't. I think that if you're deciding to get into this thing called entrepreneurship, if you're currently operating a business, the biggest thing is just to make sure that you're paying attention to the numbers and you are not getting too emotional about it, right? Emotions many times, it clouds your judgment. So, if you're doing this as a side hustle, that's the best way to start business, right? Especially if you have a family, if you have a wife and children, or maybe you have some parents that you take care of. Make sure that you take care of home first. Thank your boss every day for your job. Be great at your job so that you can continue to provide for your family and meet your obligations. And then you need to figure out how to increase your capacity once you get off of that job so that you can pour the resources that you've got from that job, or maybe the things that you've learned, into your business. And you need to give the same level of energy and time and care to your business as you do your day job. And back to the earlier part of the conversation, if you are looking to turn this into something that you do full time, where you need to focus on scalability, those three pillars, how does your business run and how does it operate, and really dialing that in and making it very duplicatable. Where are you getting your customers and leads from? Making that predictable, and then really being efficient and mastering the sales process. Those three things. You get those things down in business, you're unstoppable.
Thanks, Arias, for coming on the podcast today and sharing those insights. Where can the viewers find you online?
So my website has all of my businesses. It has my book, our coaching program, all of our softwares. So it's ariaswebsterberry.com. So AriasWebsterBerry.com. Long name, Arias WebsterBerry. I'm the only one of me on the planet as far as I know. So if you just Google my name, you can find me there. I'm on all of the social media platforms as well. And if you're a entrepreneur in your first 5 years, then Launch Ignition is probably going to be for you. So www.launchignition.ai. Go there, set a meeting to talk with us, and maybe we can help.
And to the viewers, on that note, we pull the cuttings on this episode. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Until the next episode, cheers.